Assalamualaikum everyone. So this podcast will cover Unit 2, Chapter 1. 2 is titled Making the Change, and then Chapter 1 is specifically about knowledge. So I'm just going to start actually by playing an ayah from the Quran.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا يفسح الله لكم وإذا قيل انشزوا فانشزوا يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات والله بما تعملون خبير.
Okay, hopefully you were able to read the translation along with that. And then along those lines as well, Abu Darda radiallahu anhu once reported that the Messenger of Allah sallam, said, "He who follows a path in quest of knowledge, Allah will make the path of Jannah easy to him. The angels lower their wings over the seeker of knowledge, being pleased with what he does. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even the fish in the depths of the ocean, seek forgiveness for him. A superiority of the learned man over the devout worshipper is like that of the full moon to the rest of the stars. And the learned are the heirs of the prophets who bequeath neither dinar nor dirham, but only that of knowledge. And he who acquires it has in fact acquired an abundant portion." So subhanAllah, I just thought this was an incredibly powerful hadith and really just inspirational about why we should be one of the seekers of knowledge, and just because of all these benefits that are mentioned in this hadith. Next step is to make sure that we are purified by the knowledge. And so Sheikh Umar Sulaiman talked about these verses from Surah Al-Jum'ah in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about sending a messenger to the people, and he actually talks about the messenger purifying them before teaching them, or he mentions purification before teaching. So I thought this was a really noteworthy point, that the tazkiyah comes before the application. And then he also in that same surah he talks about the people that were entrusted with the Torah, and unfortunately they didn't take the knowledge to their benefit, and they were actually compared to being like donkeys that carry books, because donkeys obviously aren't using the book, so it's almost like the knowledge that was given to them was wasted. Amr bin Abdul Aziz once said, "Whoever makes his knowledge, his religion, the object of argumentation will frequently change it." So I think the point of this is that seeking knowledge is obviously very important, but it's important that we also keep our mannerisms intact and not make religion a source of argumentation. So even, or especially, when we're giving nasiha to others, if it's not taken well, it's better to drop it rather than make it become a cause of argument. So another dua by Abu Darda is, he used to say, "I ask Allah for iman that never wears out, for certainty that is truthful, and for knowledge that's beneficial. Nas'alullaha imanan da'iman wa yaqinan sadiqan wa ilman nafi'an." And Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah said, "Scholars are more needed than food and drink, because food and drink sustain the body, and scholars sustain the soul." So again, I just thought this was incredibly a wise statement, showing us that, like, just as much as food and drink is important to us, knowledge and scholars of our times are also equally important, because they are the ones that sustain our souls. And then when choosing a scholar, Sheikh Omar Sulaiman talked a lot about this. It's important to look for someone that's obviously correct in their knowledge, but also that they have good mannerisms. And so in generations past, actually, many people used to spend days and days just watching or just observing a scholar and their mannerisms before even they would take it upon themselves to become students of that person. They would just study their mannerisms for a long time, and only after they were satisfied with their mannerisms they would become students of them for their knowledge. So it's important to keep that in mind. And then also important to keep in mind that scholars are not considered saints in our religion. So they are also fallible, and it's actually okay and even, encouraged by many people to ask for evidence, as long as you do so respectfully. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah once said, "If you're going to follow a scholar blindly, make sure you follow someone who's dead, because a living person is still subject to his desires and may become corrupt and lead you astray." So again, just emphasizing the fact that scholars are also fallible, and so it's important that we also are keeping our minds open and thinking about things without following someone blindly. Okay, another important aspect of knowledge is that we also practice what we preach. So, there are many ayah from the Quran. I just have a couple listed here that talk about the importance of preaching or practicing what we preach. And so, um, something that's just important to keep in mind. And Ali bin Abu Talib once said, narrate to people what they can understand. So the point of this is that, everyone's at a different stage in Iman and practice. And so it's important that when we try to teach people about Islam or talk to them, that we kind of talk to their level and not say something that they're not ready to hear. Um, Again, try to avoid unnecessary argumentation. And then Imam Hassan al-Basri said, seek knowledge in a way that doesn't harm your worship, and seek to worship Allah in a way that does not harm your pursuit of knowledge. So this is to say that both seeking knowledge and worship are very important, but one should not be neglected for the sake of the other. So it's important that we try to balance our lives and allow um, adequate time for both things, so that because they help us grow in different ways. So seeking knowledge should not make us less able to worship, and vice versa. So Sheikh Umar Suleiman talked about three types of students of knowledge, and I'll go over those briefly. So number one is those who seek knowledge with evil intentions from the beginning, and I believe he called these the halikin. So these are the people that have intentions other than seeking the pleasure of Allah. And then the third group are those who are called the faizin, and those are the ones who are successful, the ones who are purely dedicate themselves to seeking the pleasure of Allah while learning and teaching. And then the second category fall in between number one and two, or number one and three. They're actually unnamed category, and these are often the people that love getting the praise, or they're getting love receiving the praise as a result of gaining knowledge, but they also have the intention of pleasing Allah as well. Okay, and then three difficulties of pursuing knowledge. So one is just keeping ourselves in the pursuit. Two is acting upon the knowledge, and three, being saved and protected from the knowledge. So it's important that we don't corrupt our intentions, as I kind of alluded to before, and that we use our knowledge to do good things, basically. So in the class, if you remember, Sheikh Umar Sulaiman gave the example of Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man, who originally had good intentions, but then became corrupt and became an evil person. So in a similar fashion, we should make sure that our intentions are also kept pure when seeking knowledge. Okay, and then just some tips of that he provided us to help us develop the attitude of a true student. So one is understanding the role of the people of knowledge. Two, keeping company of righteous people, and along with that, be able to humble ourselves and to be able to accept criticism. So a dua that we're encouraged to say is, may Allah have mercy on whomever guides us to our faults. So this is to say that um, as we talked about in class, other people are often a mirror of us and often can see faults in us that we don't necessarily recognize ourselves. So it's important to have people around you that can recognize those faults and also be able to tell you, so that you can, inshallah, improve based on that feedback. And then consider what your enemies say about you, and especially if more than one person says the same thing, it might be that there is some truth to the statement. So again, it's important to be sensitive to these kinds of comments so that we can improve from them and better ourselves. Learning from flaws of people around us, and then learning from people of all ages. And this is important, I think, because sometimes it might be difficult to try to learn from someone that we think is younger than us, or and it's important to recognize that we can have a lot to learn from people of all ages, regardless of whether or not they're older or younger. There's many examples of this as well in our history. For example, Imam Shafi was very young, and used to frequently teach many people that were much older than him. And learning from family members, again, can be difficult for some people, but also a very valuable resource. And then learning from people above and below us in social status, again, similar theme. And then this is actually a quote by Mu'adh bin Jabal, in which he said, seek knowledge, for seeking it for the sake of Allah is a sign of consciousness, acquiring it is an act of worship, studying it is a glorification, and searching for it is jihad. So subhanAllah, just so many good benefits from seeking knowledge that, inshallah, again, this can provide inspiration for us on our quest. All right, so this brings us to the end of chapter 1. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.